super excited, but then the more I thought about it, the more I started to have mixed emotions. What do they mean by live action? Are they gonna have people in costumes like in the Broadway show? Are there going to be real lions? Or will it all just be CGI? Because that's technically not live action, it's just animated better. And if that's the case, do you just go scene by scene with better animation? Do you change anything at all? Because I dare you to improve upon The Lion King. Do you think you can get a better voice for Mufasa? Actually, calling it now. Idris Elba will be Mufasa. But if it were me, don't even hire someone else. Just use the audio from the original, and maybe even throw in a few Darth Vader lines.
Remember who you are. You are my son. I am your father.
That plays. But seriously, could it be better? What are the odds that you walk away from that movie saying, wow, that was better than the original? Well, we don't actually have to look that far for an example. Jon Favreau, the guy who was just tapped to direct the new Lion King, just finished working on the Jungle Book remake, which was really just one 10-year-old boy away from not being a live-action movie and just a CGI remake of the original with some changes. Changes, I would argue, that made the movie a much more cohesive and enjoyable version. Yeah, I said it. The new one is better than the original. And therein lies the core issue with remakes. The very idea that the new one could be better than the original is practically taboo. And no studio would do a remake of a bad movie, so at the very least the original was good or at least beloved. Beloved or beloved? It's gonna bother me all day. It is nearly impossible to talk someone out of their own nostalgia, so why even try to make a movie that is almost guaranteed to be considered not as good? Well, in the case of the Jungle Book, the story was just outdated. It has been, wait for it, 49 years since the original movie came out. A lot has changed since then, especially in terms of technology, so I don't think it's unfair for them to say, hey, maybe we can tell this story better now. And I think they did. And you just wait until 49 years from now when they remake Frozen in interactive 7D and you in the audience actually play Olaf.
Hi, I'm Olaf, and I like warm hugs.
But you know when that announcement comes out, you'll look back and be like, the original was so much better. But maybe you'll only think that because you got to experience Frozen during its peak popularity and you had no distractions by what will eventually be aged technology. Side note, cell phones are by far the worst culprit of this. Even in movies from like 10 years ago, they'll like whip out a flip phone and you're like, whoa, hey buddy, get a new phone. Rule of thumb, no phones in movies. Gonna make a note of that. But there are other reasons too. For example, Cinderella, the original animated Disney classic, even today has a 97% score on Rotten Tomatoes. But how much of that is left over from 1950 nostalgia? Yeah, Cinderella came out in 1950. Feel old yet? If that exact movie came out today, do you still think it would get that score? I doubt it, but not because it's not well done, but because that version of Cinderella isn't much of a role model anymore. In the animated version, most of the plot just kind of happens to her, and she falls in love with the prince on what basis? Because he's a prince? But in the new 2015 version, she meets the prince ahead of time, they spend time together, get to know each other, and she's just overall more independent. If Disney's goal with their princesses is to be role models, then it's almost their responsibility to make sure that they are up to date with modern times if they're going to continue to influence children. And on that note, making a new version is a great way to introduce beloved characters to a new generation. Beloved. 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 I'm rolling with it. I mean, Disney used to literally re-release their old movies back into theaters so that new generations could see them. If that's the alternative, I'm almost grateful that we're actually getting something new. But then you have to wonder, are they making it for the next generation, or is it just to prey on all of our nostalgia? Look at the final text we see on the new Beauty and the Beast reboot trailer. Be our guest. If you haven't seen the original, these words mean nothing to you. It's not like be our guest is in the fairy tale. Be our guest is actually the hashtag for this movie. Like, what kind of marketing is that? It's kind of like, you'll understand after you see the movie. Until then, just roll with it. Beloved. Hashtag get that princess some armor. See? you don't get that hashtag because you haven't finished watching this video yet. Would you see a movie solely based on the hashtag get that princess some armor? Actually, yeah, that sounds awesome. Bad example. On the other hand, if they just continue to recreate all of their old movies, we never get any new original stories. Are we all just destined to continue to relive the same movies over and over again? Are future generations going to think that their new version of The Jungle Book is a remake of this and not this? Maybe, but a lot of times they're not so much remakes as retakes, like a new take on an old story. Take Alice in Wonderland. Instead of being a remake, it's more like a sequel. She goes back to Wonderland, but has forgotten it all, and basically has the same adventure, except this time everyone sort of remembers her, but then at the end she gears up and fights a dragon. Don't remember that from the original, but man, I hope that's how Beauty and the Beast ends. Hashtag get that princess some armor. Maybe that's the whole reason you do remakes. Add dragons. And one day, future YouTubers will look back and make videos about the dragon age of Disney. Yeah, you may laugh, but someone somewhere once upon a time was in a boardroom and was like, guys, Hamlet, but with lions. I like to imagine they all stood up and applauded. So yeah, maybe there are a lot of good reasons to remake The Lion King and possibly even make it better, or tell it from a different perspective, or just modernize it for a new generation. Or maybe it's just a huge cash grab. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on the whole age of reboots in the towel section down below. How do you feel about the fresh take on old things, or do you believe there should just be truly fresh new original movies? Either way, gear up, because Disney already has 18 of these things planned. Guys, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you'd like to see some more Disney content from us, you can click right here to figure out who Simba's